And what's up, everybody? We're back for episode 7 of the Brew Crew Podcast. It's your boys, Julian and Chev. Chev, say hi.
Hi.
And we're actually joined by a third member of the Brew Crew, our newest member, Oak. What's good, Oak? How's it going?
Oh, it's going pretty good. Glad to be here.
Yeah, so if you guys haven't seen, we have been adding Eric and now Oak, so we're the full foursome, the dynamic quattro. And Oak just actually put up an article today. Oak, you want to give them a little rundown on what you're going to be doing and what your article's about?
Yeah, sure thing. Basically, it's another edition of one of our newer series, piloted by Chev, actually, the Plus 40 series, and I did it on one of the recently released gods from Theros Beyond Death.
And what god would that be, Oak? You're not giving the listeners much to work on. You got to get them interested.
I'm trying to keep them on edge. You know, I can't just tell them. I can't just tell them everything.
Suspense. All right.
Yeah, I want them to go read the article. You know, so yeah.
You should make the trip over to our website. It could be a delightful passage.
Hop on that boat. Oak will be your ferryman.
Yep.
So, Julian, we've had some big upsets in the Magic world recently.
You're right, Chev. You're right. I'm happy that you're getting us back on track because there is a lot to talk about in today's pod. And I know we say that every week, but it's because we just really like to talk. So there have been some big things happening in the Magic world. Our two main topics today are a very large banned and restricted announcement that came out just a little bit ago, and then also discussing another new set. I know it feels like we have a new set every week, but
It's
another new set that's going to be coming.
It's terrible for my wallet, but great for set diversity and me adding new cards to my collection.
Well, the interesting thing about this set, actually, and let's just talk about this now because you and I were just discussing how much we loved the Amonkhet set, and I remember vividly and fondly our Hour of Devastation pre-release together.
That's right, yeah. That was one of the ones that I believe, going back into the Quattro lore, is when you came up to Boston with Eric, right? And then you stayed in Oakley's and my apartments, and we went to it in, what was it, Pandemonium Games out in Cambridge?
Yep.
Sounds about right to me. Yeah, that was a very fun set. I really like that sealed environment. So anyway, the news is that Wizards is releasing Amonkhet Remastered for Magic Arena. Now, Chev, what do they mean by remastered?
So what it appears to be is Amonkhet Remastered is a collection of cards from Amonkhet and Hour of Devastation that they deem, and so all these cards are being entered into Historic. They're bypassing Standard. They're going into that new online environment. And they are just like sort of the best, and it seems like a few, not necessarily random, but cards that were decided upon by a force higher than I could figure out, added some cards to the set as well. But it's kind of a best of collection of the set that's going to be entering as you can play it in Constructed, you can play drafts of it, and then all cards will be Historic legal, I believe is the correct sort of breakdown of where these cards are going.
That's interesting. I mean, I know that Wizards is trying to fill out their the card pool on Arena as much as they can, so they're now slowly working their way back from what's the oldest set? Is it the Ixalan block or Dominaria block?
Dominaria is definitely on there. I think Ixalan is too. I think Ixalan is part of Historic.
Right. Okay. And then so I'm assuming they're attempting to make their way all the way back and maybe cover all the Pioneer covers
it is
eventually.
Interesting though how they're going with these sort of like I understand from a resource perspective going for these sort of like remastered ideas where you're going to take sort of a condensed version of these sets and throw them on, but it does make it confusing if you were trying to explain to someone who isn't on Arena yet what is in Historic. And I remember people were not necessarily complaining, but making noise when Modern Horizons came out of like, oh, what's in Modern? Well, it's everything up until this date, plus, this random set called Modern Horizons that's part of Modern but not part of Standard, blah, blah, blah. And now if you try to tell someone what's on Historic, it's getting close to just like, I don't know, man, think of a card and search it and you'll find out. Now that we have this like sort of, we had Jumpstart that was added to Historic, we have Amonkhet Remastered that's added to Historic, And so there's no real easy go-to list for cards that are legal in this format. But I think that's a topic for another day.
Yeah, I think it is. I'm sure we'll discuss historic much more in articles and podcasts.
That's right, Julian. You talked about finally sort of looking into it after you talked about it all those weeks ago on the pod.
Yes, I'm in the progress of doing that, and we may see an article about it later this week or next week. But we don't want to spoil anything.
That's true. We want to keep them on their toes.
Exactly. But really, I want to hear Oak's take on this topic because he played a lot of Amonkhet back in the day, and I want to know if there's anything that he's excited to, any cards he's excited to be able to play with now that they're on Arena, which is where we play a majority of our Magic nowadays.
Yeah. I was a big fan of the two sets that came with a sort of Amonkhet like mini block. Of the cards that are being added, it's tough to say. I don't play a lot of Historic personally, and so I wouldn't necessarily know like what cards are going to really shake up the format. Although, you never know. If we see the emergence of some cool new decks coming in to the Historic format, then it might be enough to sort of get one into that. But yeah, honestly, I'm more excited about the concept itself of Amonkhet being added to Historic, because it seems like Wizards is sort of just going backwards through their sets and adding them to Historic. Besides, obviously there are exceptions, like everyone knows cards like Phyrexian Obliterator and Ulamog are in Historic for whatever reason. But if we see, now that we're seeing Amonkhet being added, hopefully soon we'll maybe see another one of my favorite sets in recent time, Kaladesh, being added, or perhaps even ones that came soon before that,
BFZ?
Yeah, exactly. Well, I was going to say that, or even after that was Shadows over Innistrad.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, I forgot
Eldritch
about
Moon.
that.
I was trying to think. I thought something came between those two.
Yeah.
I forgot. It was like
back in the beginnings of our time.
Origins or something like that.
Yep.
Origins was right before BFZ.
I might not necessarily be super excited about that that one coming, but definitely Kaladesh and the return to Innistrad, as it were, block. I'd love to see those in Historic, and yeah.
There's a lot of cool cards in those sets. Though I'm worried
I think
about.
The interesting thing will be if we see a cycling deck come out of this. Since we just had cycling come back in Ikoria, and now of course we've got all the payoff cards like New Perspectives and what's that? And the black card that whenever you cycle a card, pay 1 and I think it's drain 2, gain 2.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, Zenith Flare decks.
Yeah.
Yep.
And Drakehaven, of course. You can't forget Drakehaven.
Oh, yeah. The one card I did forget just the name of until just a second ago was God Pharaoh's Gift. I really liked those decks in Amonkhet Standard, and it'd be awesome to see a resurgence.
Oh, yeah. God Pharaoh's Gift was... That was an interesting deck.
Yep.
We have Offspring's Revenge in the format right now, or in Standard, I should say, right now, which is similar, but unfortunately not gaining any traction. Probably because it's 3 colors as opposed to colorless.
Yeah. But yeah, it's definitely, and then especially, I've been interested in seeing what are the cards they added as seems to kind of push into Historic with things like Collected Company. That's coming back. I never played with that or paid attention to the meta when that was a big thing, but if I remember correctly, it was kind of a capital B big deal back in the day.
It's powerful. It's a powerful card.
It's definitely capital B. Maybe not the one you mentioned, but
capital B, big pain in my butt.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm waiting for the official line from Wizards on what these random cards, like there's Thoughtseize in here now, which I think is fine. I think that mid-range is something that needs to be a little bit buffed in Historic, but I just want to know what the deal is with these random cards that are being included. and if we can expect that, further on, and what the sort of list is that they're coming from, or if this is just, well, we wanted these cards in the format, but Historic Anthology 4 is, a few months out, so let's just push them here.
Yeah.
We'll wait and see, I guess. But anyway, that is coming soon, but
August
we have
13th,
something...
I think it goes live.
That is only in a few days. That's exciting. Probably that's like the day of when this podcast comes out, assuming that my editing is on point.
We're looking into the near future.
That's coming soon, but we have something that is affecting us right now, right in the present. It happened just a few days ago, and that is, like we said, the large list of bannings, potentially the largest ban-restricted announcement that's ever hit us. So
probably since Kaladesh. Or did Kaladesh was more of a slow burn where things got burned off like every couple weeks.
Kaladesh was similar in that there was a banning that basically hit all of the top decks, which we'll get into once we start talking these cards. But I think just from sheer number of cards banned right now.
Sheer amount,
we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. 11 cards banned across 4 formats. I mean, some of them are repeats, but 11 bannings across 4 formats is pretty unprecedented. So let's start with the easiest one, which will kind of give us an idea of what's to come, and that's in Chev, your favorite format. Oak is a big fan of this format too, which is Brawl. We have Teferi Time Raveler is banned. 3-mana Teferi. Boys, as Brawl players, what's up?
So I never actually played against the Teferi Time Raveler deck. I mean, as far as I can remember. So like when I was reading that it was 10% of the meta, I mean, I took a couple days break to drive across country, but I don't think this change was overnight. So I'm kind of like, maybe my game was just not memorable against it, but I don't ever remember having a problem. But that being said, I haven't been a fan of the card ever, so I'm glad it's gone. I don't know what your experience has been, Oak.
Yeah, so I wouldn't say 10% of the matches I've played in Brawl are against a Teferi, but that said, the ones that I do encounter Teferi, it's, I mean, I don't know what I can say that hasn't been said about the card already. It's super oppressive, and if it wasn't bad enough, like when you're playing against it in Standard, it seems like no matter what, if the person's playing it, they'll always have it turn 3. But in Brawl, they do always have it turn 3. Like no matter what.
Right.
It's obviously. So it's not fun to play against. That's just the best way to sum it up. The card itself is such like an early game tempo shift, and it's honestly very demoralizing to play against. If you're not playing any sort of like super aggressive strategy, or any strategy that tries to play anything at instant speed, those are pretty much my my thoughts on that.
Yeah, I would agree. It kind of almost reminds me of something like Drannith Magistrate, which got banned, which basically says, you can't cast spells from anywhere except your hand, aka you can't cast your commander. And as someone who's been playing a lot of Torbrand, which is a 4-mana card, it's kind of hard to play your Torbrand when you know it's just going to immediately get bounced. And that's kind of how it goes for basically all the commanders in the format. So I'm not sad to see it go. Like you said, them having it every time, even though it already feels like they have it every time in Standard, is no fun. One thing that I was wondering, Chev, since you said that you've never actually played against one, and I've played against it a few times, but not that much. Is there a algorithm in the Brawl?
Yeah,
not really
I remember
cues.
reading something that was like, but I believe it was implemented almost, if not at the same time as the ban, like shortly after or shortly before. But I was reading somewhere that like, depending on your commander in one of the arena stage of the game, and maybe one of the listeners can figure out which one it was probably last week or the week before, but it was that depending on the commander you play, they might sort of change who you're going to go against. One of the best examples being like Kinnan. If you're playing a very aggressive style commander, then you might be playing in more like competitive matches, but it would give people who are playing more dirtly commanders a chance to kind of play out those decks without being immediately stomped on. And as a sort of like concept, I like the idea of being able to try new things, but it does bring interesting questions to like what is the role of a ban list if you're playing against only people who are like at your level of competitiveness.
Yeah, I'm unsure, and I also was wondering if there's some sort of thing where they're adjusting who you play against based on your win rate. I mean, obviously that's basically how the ranked queues work, but if you're playing as a Teferi deck and you're just winning and winning, maybe then you're getting paired up against other Teferi decks, and not saying that we're not
you end up
phenomenal
in a
Magic players,
microcosm of Teferi.
but we're down the ladder a little bit, so
right.
I don't know. Anyway,
yeah,
Teferi's gone.
Once you get to all those sort of like internal matchmaking skills and algorithms and all that, it's a totally wild world.
Right. So Teferi's gone. We're fine with it. Maybe even a little bit happy. I will say though that is sort of a precedent for this whole banned and restricted announcement, because in standard, Teferi is also banned. Whoopee! Along with 3 other cards. Wilderness Reclamation, Growth Spiral, and Cauldron Familiar. So I think we've pretty much said everything we need to say about Teferi. The fact that you can play 4 basically means that you have it on turn 3 every time. But let's talk about Wilderness Reclamation and Growth Spiral. Oak, I know you have strong opinions on these cards, as I do. Why don't you tell the people what's up?
Jeez. Well, Wilderness Reclamation. Man, there's so much you can say about this card. I think the first time I saw it spoiled, I was just like, oh, alright, like how that's unbelievable. Like I can't believe that they would like print something like that, and especially at uncommon. It just seemed insane.
Yeah.
The big problem I had with Wilderness Reclamation was it paired with Nexus of Fate. How you could basically have a Nexus on turn 4, in combination, obviously, with Growth Spiral, and then your opponent was essentially just playing Solitaire for the rest of the game, which is like, it's one thing to play like a combo deck that like wins you the game instantly. It's like, okay, but these decks would take like forever to win, and you'd just be sitting there, and it's like, do I scoop or do I let them go off or what? And so. That was awful. And then eventually Nexus rotated out of Standard, which I guess I would assume it caused some problems in Historic for a while. But the new big spell, I guess, for Wilderness Reclamation decks became Expansion Explosion, which, not quite as powerful, kills you on the spot and takes a few more turns to get going. But still pretty wild. Obviously, yeah, I mentioned this before, but the card itself being a 4-mana spell coming in on turn 3 after a Growth Spiral is just it's not something you want to see yourself up against. And so yeah, I guess I support Wizards' decision to ban it. Unlike, let's see, Teferi and... Oh, no, wait, this card would be rotating, actually, with the next set, wouldn't it? Yeah. So, maybe a little late on that. I feel like this card's been a problem ever since it was first printed, honestly. But, at least it's gone now.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, better late than never, right? This is just another card that's absolutely ridiculous with mana generation, which we've seen a bunch of, and I think that's kind of why it's gone under the radar, is because there's just been, other things that were even more powerful than it. But now it's finally its turn. I found it funny how you were saying, like, when you first saw it, you were like, oh, this is ridiculous. Like, how would this get printed? And I kind of almost want to, like, be a little elitist, because we, as Commander players, we saw it, and we were like, oh, well, this is just busted, right? Like, this is just ridiculous.
Absolutely. Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, we've seen Prophet of Krufix and, Seedborn Muse and all those sort of things. And, Prophet is banned in Commander, and Seedborn Muse is a staple. So we were like, oh, this is just another effect, which is actually harder to even interact with. But I'm just wondering if Standard players didn't realize it. But, I mean, they know now.
Yep.
They're very aware now.
Yep. They didn't
Yes.
have the eye.
Yeah, Growth Spiral, similar thing, just too efficient, and once again, props up all these ramp decks that have just been absolutely dominant for the past, almost a year now, but especially the past 6 months or so. Ramp, whether it's Teamer or Bant or just Simic, has been too powerful, arguably too powerful, and Growth Spiral is kind of the crux of that. They didn't hit Uro, which I'm waiting to see how that is.
It sounds like you have an opinion on them not hitting Uro.
I think that, Uro currently is the most played card in the metagame. I think it was Growth Spiral, and now it's Uro, and it's definitely like the most played creature. And Uro obviously is a much more powerful card than Growth Spiral. So, and I was playing in the ladder today, and I've still seen plenty of ramp decks. They've slightly changed, but it's still, player Uros
right.
attack and win. So I don't know. The thing is, Uro does not rotate. Uro still has another
year.
12 months in standard, roughly. So it's interesting to me that they didn't hit it. But I guess we'll wait and see. They probably don't want to ban any more cards from new stuff. Wilderness Declamation and Growth Spiral and Teferi are all, back from Ravnica Part 3, so they probably don't feel as bad about that. But we'll see. Ramp is still in question. I've still seen a lot of Ugins on the ladder. We'll see, but I think this is a good start. So, last standard ban, Cauldron Familiar. Chev, how you feeling? Does it hurt?
It does hurt, but more for the reason why it was banned than anything else. And so, obviously, Cauldron Familiar plus Witch's Cauldron, anyone who's played Standard knows what it's like to be against that or to be playing it, how it's, the constant triggers of sacrifice it, get a life, bring the cat back, deal another damage. And it is a kind of repetitive cycle. And I voiced this concern to, friends before, but I don't like how in the wording for why it was banned, Wizards mentioned the number of interactions it has on online games and how that's, it got to be a annoying number of triggers for people playing online. And to me, I'm, call it old school, but I don't like design decisions for a paper card game being based on online interactions. And, we've seen this before with cards that used to be printed that said, whenever effect happens, you may draw a card and lose a life. Now they just say, Midnight Rider, whenever this happens, draw a card, gain a life. Because in the online world, that would mean one less click because you have to not have to choose for that effect. And while I understand, okay, now it's like an inherent downside, and if it was billed as such, I would get it, but I just don't like the idea of things changing based on people not liking their online presence. And so that's why this ban, while I understand maybe the necessity for it, because it can be oppressive against decks that don't really have any form of interaction with it, I don't necessarily agree with why it was taken down.
I definitely agree with you on that front. I am definitely not in favor of Wizards making decisions that reduce the complexity of their wonderful game. Based on...
that's the better way to say complexity. Because, in my head, you can make the argument, as Wizards enters the 21st century, blah, 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 this card game is going digital. But, the end of the day is the complexity level. That's what I don't want to see go.
Definitely.
I agree and disagree. I agree with you that I don't like how there's a lot of things that are no longer maze. There's a lot of things that don't let you target either player. You know what I mean? So I think that is not as good. I do think that the ban being in part because of the amount of triggers and all that stuff, I think is okay. We've had bans like that in the past. Things like, there have been bans from stuff in Modern, like Quark Clan Ironworks, like stuff out of the Lantern Control deck, Sensei's Divining Top. All of these got banned, mainly because they made paper tournaments ridiculously long and unfeasible. And I think that since now a lot of things are so digital. Most of the Players Tours or Mythic Championships or whatever they're called nowadays are online, especially given the current state of the world and the pandemic and everything.
Yeah.
So I think it's somewhat reasonable, especially if all of organized play is moving towards that. I think that's a somewhat reasonable thing, but I do agree with you that even if that needs to be the case, I don't think that the design behind them should be hampered.
Yeah.
When actually putting these cards out. But if it does for some reason lead to a thing where we're just watching, sacrifice oven. Yes, I want to sacrifice this, this creature. Click creature to activate ability. Sacrifice food. Do you want to sacrifice this food? Yes. Like, if you have to do that over and over again, I can understand how that might. I think mainly it's because it would make the viewing experience, if you're watching on something like Twitch, it would make it pretty slow.
Yeah.
That's true, and it's interesting you mentioned that. Like, oftentimes sometimes you don't really step back and realize, like, probably for the entirety of Cauldron Familiar's run in Standard, MTGA is going to be people's, or like the primary way that people are going to be consuming like Magic, or and playing Magic. So that could that might be just a good enough reason in and of itself. Also,
not for me.
Personal level, that's a good deck. Called Familiar decks. So maybe all the sum total of those reasons is enough to justify its banning.
Yeah, like you were saying, this ban and restricted announcement kind of like cuts the heads off of the main decks, and with Reclamation and Ramp decks in general getting a big cut, the next best deck is arguably Rakdos Sacrifice. So I think Wizards did just a sort of a preemptive thing to, one, this card isn't the most fun to play against. Also, Rakdos, is like tier 1.5, like the third best deck or whatever. So once we cut these other ones out, it's going to be the most powerful. So let's just, cut that off at the head and just completely remove tier 1, and then now tier 2 becomes tier 1, and that sort of thing. So I think that is a nice way to do it. We've seen similar things like that in the past, like we were discussing the Kaladesh bannings, where they took out, Emrakul and Aetherworks Marvel, but then they also took out something out of the Bant decks because that was like the third best deck.
Right.
Yeah.
So
I'll actually have to think and make a new standard deck. It's a rough day.
Well, I will give good news to both of you. From what I've seen, and also what just I'm hypothesizing, the best decks now, at least until the format rotates, are going to be either just like generic good stuff ramp decks, which can't completely get rid of them, but that's fun to play sometimes. But also, there's a lot of monocolored aggro decks that are doing very strong. So mono red is coming back. Chev mono green is coming back. Mono white is also doing very well, and I think there's even a mono black deck that's making the rounds. So one, probably easy to craft, and also two, good old fashioned beaten face.
I'll give it a whirl.
Yeah, I'm a fan of that.
Yeah, exactly. So you're sleeve up your fervent champions and your. I want Torbrand to come back, man.
Yeah.
Evercleave's cool. Evercleave's cool and all, but like, have you ever just hit for +2 on everything?
Oh, it's so nice. It's so nice.
Feels good.
You're mentioning your Torbrand Boral deck earlier, man.
Yeah,
sometimes that's just what you need.
Feels good, man.
Yep.
Anyway, that's standard. One last format. No, sorry, two more formats that we want to hit. But next is historic. So historic has been pretty mirroring of standard recently, just because standard has been so powerful that why wouldn't you just play, standard decks in historic, but with a little bit of extra juice. So they cut Wilderness Reclamation and Teferi Time Raveler out of historic. Oak, like you were saying, Nexus Reclamation was a problem. They banned Nexus last time around, and now Wilderness Reclamation is also getting cut. Sorry, I misspoke. Reclamation and Teferi Time Raveler are suspended. They will probably go to the ban list, in a couple months when their time is up. But they're in timeout for now. Boys, any thoughts about this? I know neither of y'all really play historic, but
yeah, I mean it's the kind of thing where it's like if historic is supposed to exist as kind of like the new online home for a non-rotating format, and the only things that you can play in that are the current standard. Something has to change. So on a surface level, totally get it, totally understand if these things are being banned across the board. It makes sense to suspend them here, but not really knowing much about the meta, I'm just going to take it at face value.
Yeah, I know. I mentioned earlier. I might have said, oh, it's a little late for Wilderness, Growth Spiral, and Teferi to be banned from Standard, but maybe in thinking that I sort of missed the point, which is actually that they're being banned in Historic, and we're just going to take it out of Standard for the next couple of months until the rotation, just to make.
I didn't think of that. Yeah.
Yeah, just to make everyone happy, because why not? And if they're powerful enough to be banned in Historic, then obviously they deserve to be probably in Standard as well.
Yeah, I think that's a very good point, and I feel like that's a lot of what's been happening recently is you'll see something banned in Standard and Historic at the same time. So, we'll see. All right, so that's Historic. That should be good because I think Wilderness Wreck was also the best deck in Historic, or one of the 2 or 3 best decks. Last format. What do y'all know about Pioneer?
The only thing I know about it is Underworld Breach and Inverter of Truth are terrible. And now they're both gone, I'm back to knowing nothing about Pioneer.
Yeah, I feel like before Theros Beyond Death was released, I knew a bit about Pioneer. I knew some of like the main decks, and then that set just came out, and I saw the Inverter of Truth combo with Thassa's Oracle, and I just kind of, averted my gaze for a little while. Yeah.
Yeah. So, like Chev said, Inverter of Truth, banned. Underworld Breach, banned. Yep. Also, Kethis the Hidden Band, and Walking Banned Lista. So, Inverter of Truth, like you said, Oak combos with Thassa's Oracle, was probably the best deck, if not one of 2 or 3 best decks. I like that they cut Inverter instead of Oracle because you still have things like 4 mana War of the Spark Jace, which does the same thing. Just cut out the deck that, cut out the card that puts that makes your entire deck go away. It's a very unique effect. Just get rid of it. There's no reason. I remember. I think that was either a BFZ or an Oath card, and it came out and we saw it and we're like, what is this stupid black devoid mythic what is this?
It's a bulk mythic. If you pulled one of those, you were like, oh man, I just wasted $4.
Yeah, exactly. But turns out it put the heat on in Pioneer for a bit.
Yep.
So that one's banned. Underworld Breach was the other combo deck, which I actually still don't know what the combo is, but I just know that Underworld Breach, I read it and I was like, oh, this is broken. Got banned in Legacy a while ago. You can imagine why. There's things like freaking Yawgmoth's Will and stuff. So Underworld Breach banned, gone. So two we had a combo deck, and then Inverter of Truth basically functions like Splinter Twin, where it's like a control deck, but then it also just can be like, oops, I win. Yep. So banned. Kethis the Hidden Hand, another combo deck, banned. Kethis was what made it tick, so just cut the head off, don't bother cutting the limbs off, which I like. And then Walking Ballista was a combo with
the new Heliod.
Yes, the new Heliod, which is, I think, a turn 3 combo.
I think it's turn 4, because you need to be able to activate Heliod's ability and put it on the Ballista, if I'm correct. And then you can just start pinging. You ping with the Ballista, it grows bigger. You ping with the Ballista, it grows bigger. Yeah.
Yeah, so...
Once it has lifelink.
Yeah. Infinite combo, obviously, and then turn 4, maybe I'm sure there's ways to do it on turn 3, maybe if you have like a low health or something,
or Mox Amber or something.
Yeah, something like that. I don't know how dominant that deck was, but probably good to just get a combo deck like that out, especially if you're cutting all these other ones out. So 4 combo decks banned, completely taken out, probably for the better. It's nice to have maybe a combo deck, but when your entire top tier is 4 very powerful, very fast combo decks, I don't know how good that is for something like Pioneer. Maybe for Legacy it's fine, or Vintage. But I guess
Yeah.
pioneers a whole new world.
Whole new world.
As our friends at Disney would say.
Yeah, I think both you guys would agree that Pioneer kind of, in some ways, holds a special place in our heart, since it was, consists of sets that basically go back to around when we started really getting into the game.
Oof.
And so
That's true. Are you saying I actually have to care about it?
Yeah, I was saying it's a format that I'd really like to see do well, and pretty much up until Theros Beyond Death, it was doing all right. There was some really neat decks in there. There's some really cool cards too. There's Abrupt Decay, there's Thoughtseize, there's some really cool stuff, and then all of a sudden Theros hits, and we're just like, okay, the top 3 decks in the format are now these fast win combo decks, and if your deck doesn't win before that, then you just can't play it because everyone's playing these cards. So it sounds like Wizards sort of saw that tank in playership of Pioneer, which obviously the main form of doing that right now is MTGO. And they took action, and it seems like I don't know. I'd say it was a good move. Again, I haven't really played much Pioneer. I've kind of again averted my gaze since Theros came out, and but I might get into it now. It's looking pretty good, looking a lot better for sure.
Yeah, I was kind of hoping that Pioneer was just going to be like all the decks from our Magic infancy, Siege Rhinos and Jeskai with Jace Vryn's Prodigy and stuff. I was like, those were some good, honest decks.
Yes.
And they don't even have fetch land, so it's like, you're just playing. I thought we were just going to be playing good, honest Magic, but I hope that the format comes up. I really hope that Wizards makes good on their, I think, sort of promise, or at least hinting that Pioneer is going to be on Arena pretty soon, if they're slowly starting
That's
to
what
move
they're
back.
moving towards.
Yeah.
So maybe within the next year, that would be pretty sweet, or 1.5 years. I don't know how long it'll take to get all those sets. And I don't know how much progress they've made, but I think if it's on Pioneer, or if Pioneer is on Arena, I will be playing. I know you guys will probably be playing as well.
Oh, absolutely.
Definitely.
And I think that'll just be better for the player base, because from what I've heard, the numbers on Magic Online in general are not that good, and for Pioneer they're bad.
Yeah, there were queues that weren't finishing, or queues that weren't filling was the big issue.
Ooh,
yeah,
jeez.
exactly. So hopefully this is a good step in the right direction, and hopefully some cool decks will come out of it. I really don't know what to expect just because the card pool is so big. So, anything else we want to talk about in regards to bans? Anything that should have been banned that wasn't banned? Anything that shouldn't have been banned? I don't know. Boys?
I know. I that covers everything that I would possibly want to be doing.
Yeah, I think off the top of my head, that's all I can think of. I can't think of really any other. I'm thinking mostly in the brawl lane for things that could have been banned. But honestly, I don't think I've gone up against much that is really I just considered to be awful.
I want Nicol
same with
Bolas
these
Dragon
cards
God out of Brawl. That man has been putting the work on me for the past
that's
2
true.
weeks.
He's been coming up recently. I don't remember seeing him for a while, but recently he's just been throwing mad shade.
He's been annoying. Niv Mizzet is never great to play against. It's not
true.
always super powerful, but I just feel like every time I see someone playing Niv Mizzet, I groan. I'm just like, oh, why? Why are we doing this?
What I actually do find myself going up against frequently is Kinnan decks. I don't know if there's that algorithm you mentioned before is in play, or if there's just a lot of people playing that, but it's I don't know. It's it's just a solid deck. And every time I see myself going up against one, I kind of got to put my serious face on, and I actually got to try and do stuff. Otherwise, I'm gonna feel bad, if I lose or something. To friggin' Kinnan deck.
Yeah, I mean, who would play something like that?
Yeah, I know.
Scoundrels.
Yeah.
Well.
Sure.
Hey, Julian's been playing it too. I'm not the only one.
Oh, Julie, you too? Oh man.
Well, I was like, I want to play Brawl. This was maybe 2 months ago, and Chet was like,
Yeah.
I've been doing pretty good with this Kinnan deck, and I was like, oh, I just opened one of those. All right, let's go. And I got converted. But then recently, I've been back to my back to the good old the Torbs. You know,
Nice.
Mhm.
I just want to play
That's
red
weird.
spells. I just want to attack.
Yep.
So, all right. Well, sounds like we've talked about everything we want to talk about for today. Boys, any final thoughts? Any parting messages to the fans?
No, just keep playing Magic and watch out for our new articles that we drop. I've been recently trying Rada in Brawl, so I'm hoping to make something of that at some point soon, if I can get it to actually win. But
Yeah.
I'm still
other
right
than
about it.
that,
Can theoretically win.
I've recently been running an Omnath, newest Omnath, obviously, build on Brawl, which was interesting. I was actually, usually I find myself recently being inspired to play commander decks by their Brawl, by how they perform in Brawl, but this was actually the other way around for me. I played some Omnath games in a play group, and made me kind of want to make an Omnath deck on Brawl, or on MTGA in Brawl.
Yeah,
I was pretty excited actually with how well it worked.
wow. Well, get your games in soon, because I think, doesn't he rotate in September?
Oh God, does he? What's? Oh jeez.
Because he's M20, right?
Yep, he is M20. Oh jeez. All right.
But new Zendikar, probably new on
That's
that.
true. Yeah,
True.
no,
Make that one.
we'll be getting a
True.
new Omnath, as we talked about
Yep.
on the pod last time.
Yep.
What's
Ooh,
the
yeah.
what's the fourth color going to be? Has that been confirmed?
I think it was confirmed to be white.
Ooh, interesting.
Interesting.
I don't know how many white elementals there are really though.
I don't think
Yeah.
there are many,
I don't know.
but we'll see. We'll see what
We'll
direction
look.
he goes in.
We'll
Hey,
find
Frozen.
out when we inevitably do a podcast or two on the spoilers coming out in probably 2 weeks.
Yep.
Yeah. All right. Well, we had a lot of fun. We hope you did too. This is Jules for Chev and Oak. This is the Brew Crew signing out.